Assalamu alaikum. This is Samia from Soulful Latte Podcast, and welcome to episode 4. In this episode, we wanted to have a third person come in and have a really nice, open, vulnerable, and soulful conversation about anxiety during this time. And we wanted to bring in someone who has been very open about her own experience with anxiety, and we thought that it would make for a great podcast episode, and we will just grow together. And so today's guest is Ola Alghazzouli, who is the founder of Be Fit for Akhirah. So let me tell you a little bit about her before we jump into our conversation for today. Ola graduated from George Mason University with a BS in Biology and Health Promotion minor. She is an ACE certified personal trainer and functional fitness specialist, as well as certified basic safety swim instructor. Her passion of fitness and health started in 2004 when she started high school and was battling eating disorder throughout that time. She got into weightlifting in 2008 and then struggled with anxiety and depression in 2011 to 2012. Now she enjoys outdoor workouts because it helps her deal with stress and anxiety as well as reconnect more with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She started Be Fit of Akhirah in 2014 with a vision for a stronger, more confident and hopeful ummah. She is also a podcast host like us of the Purposeful Fitness with Coach Ola show. If you want to listen into the podcast, it is about fitness, mental health, spiritual health, and an active lifestyle with a purpose. And you can find it on all of your major podcasting shows, or you can check out her website, which will be linked in the show notes below. And now for this soulful conversation, let's meet Coach Ola.
Welcome to Soulful Latte Podcast, a weekly conversation between two sisters to help us and our virtual friends online, like yourselves, grow in life and in faith. We're your hosts. I am Qudsiyah.
And I'm Samia. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. We have Ola with us today. Ola, how are you?
Wa alaikum assalam, Samia. Alhamdulillah. How are you, my friend?
Doing very good in this crazy time, and Qudsiyah is with us as well in the UK. Qudsiyah, things were crazy on your side, but now they're crazy on our side. So we're going through this together now officially.
We're crazy all over sides, all over the world.
I think, yeah, definitely.
Listening to the entire current events and situation, we wanted to do this podcast episode about the anxiety which many of us are feeling on many different levels. Some people have a lot of anxiety and some have just a little bit, and some are living in this perfect bubble, which I wish I could be a part of, honestly, because I know that I'm feeling sometimes some tinges of worries here and there. So that's why, Ola, we thought that you would be really good to talk to, because on your platform you're really open about mental illness and how it relates to your fitness, your physical health, and your spirituality. And you have openly talked about your anxiety for a long time now. And so I'm curious to know how your anxiety is going at this time when, okay, so let me just rephrase a little bit, right? Because sometimes anxiety can happen inside your head. Because it's like the situations we're forming is inside our head. But right now they're like literally forming all around us and in our heads. So how is anxiety working for you right now?
Yeah, I had panic attack, right? And like the heartbeat that's beating like non-crazy. Like non-stop, excuse me. So that's something I'm going through, where it's coming back into me, where the fears, the overwhelm is kicking in, being afraid, allowing myself to forget the past, move on, forgive myself, not overwhelmed about the fear of the afterlife, like it's coming and all of that. And I actually want to share with you guys a hadith that I want to share that I think is very helpful for us to remember. Abu Sa'id and Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhum said, reported that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, never a believer is stricken with a discomfort and illness, and anxiety, a grief, or a mental worry, or even the pricking of a thorn, but Allah will expiate his sins on account of his patience. Al-Bukhari and Muslim. And I know there's another hadith that says about when you help another Muslim remove that anxiety in this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remove it in the afterlife as well. So we're all in it together. So if we can help one another, inshallah, Allah will help us also in the afterlife. And yeah, I actually have done my own YouTube video where I shared back in October on how I overcame my anxiety attacks, and I can talk about it.
Yeah, tell us briefly.
Yes, please. Yeah, I was just going to ask as well. I'm very curious, yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you guys the links if you want to in the show notes. But what helped me at that time, and what helps me usually cope and stuff, it's art therapy, taking time to breathe. So breathing techniques. Take a deep breath in, let out, journal writing, and I know both of you are like into journal writing as well. And then there's a hadith that said about like giving charity when you're feeling a little bit stingy or something like that. Actually, I put it in the video here. But yeah, there's a hadith that says like when you give charity, Allah will like help you remove the burden out of you. Yeah, like nature therapy is really helpful. And I know this is isolation. We might not be able to be so naturally outside, but still try to make some time to be around nature. And then I was blessed enough to kind of go to the beach last October without telling my parents about it. I'm so glad I did. Because I'm a very like, I need to be with the ocean. And yeah, so find something that kind of like calms your mind down.
I read an article right now, like this morning sometime, on National Geographic, and they were sharing the reality of social isolation for some people around the world. And we are here sitting talking about it, and those pictures, guys, it was so. I cannot tell you how depressing it was to see the reality of some people that literally, some of them are living in a cramped space where the toilet is like 3 inches from their head when they're sleeping. I mean, that kind of a situation. And I was like, subhanAllah, that's insane. So, so yeah, I mean, you're talking about nature therapy for us, alhamdulillah, in the West, generally speaking. I mean, sometimes that's not even the case, but generally that's something that maybe we can even peek out the window and look at a leaf or something. But in some areas, that's really hard. So that was a reality check for me because
That's
I'm
so
like, why
true.
can't people just stay in? And you're like, wait, sometimes staying in is like imprisonment.
Worse. Yeah. Oh. It just brings into perspective how different everyone's situation is right now. And we're just so blessed to be able to record this and talk about it, That in itself is such a blessing.
Honestly, I'm kind of a little bit annoyed sometimes where people are kind of complaining about things where we really shouldn't be complaining about, right? Like one of the bigger ones people are talking about is boredom. As I'm not familiar with that, being alone, because this is the life I live. I'm mostly alone all the time anyway. But just the idea of being bored and how that is problematic right now is like, just seriously.
I relate completely. I think the word boredom, it just does my head in.
A person who is like suffering through this right now with their family member, or a person who themselves in the hospital right now, would give anything to be bored than to be where they are, honestly. So I think, yeah, what Ola, like changing that perspective, like I find Islam to be all about changing the perspective. It's like whenever Allah is talking about in the Quran, he's like, hey, look at it, things this way, because this is the reality of it. So if we can just change that perspective a little bit, we might become a little bit less depressed at this time. We might be a little bit more like, oh, wait a minute. If the depression is coming from the circumstance, not from inside of your biological situation, I think we might have a better handle of handling it.
Yeah, can you actually talk about the biological aspect? I want to see, like, I'm a biology major graduate, but, like, it's not my area of
I
expertise.
am
So.
a psychology major in a bachelor's degree in college. And I will tell you one thing that if you have a bachelor in psychology, it means nothing. So I cannot speak with any authority. But what I do know is when it comes to depression, especially that's and anxiety as well, like there is neurotransmitters happening in the brain, there's dopamine levels and all those stuff that is going up and down. That's why when you need the medication for it, whether it's herbal or whether it's pharmaceutical, it helps to work with that. So it helps with the levels. So that's the only thing I can tell you. And those things for us to say to those people who are suffering through it because of biological situations, to say that, hey, take a deep breath, change your perspective, and do et cetera. I think that's very insensitive. Because to them the situation is different. It's like, oh yeah, your arm is broken, but hey, look at the positive side. It's not gonna fix my arm looking at the positive side. Like I need some medication and some help for that. So for us to say to them that is totally messed up, and I do disagree with that. But if that depression is coming out of the situation we're in, which is everyone is feeling something right now, then I think a change of perspective will be helpful.
Yeah, and that's a very great point where, like, it's important to seek medical help and professional help. Because, like, as a certified personal trainer, like, I've been told, like, that's not my area of expertise. Talk about, like, just focus on the mindset. So it's like it goes back to also my profession and like biology degree as well. Like I can't dive too deeply, but I've been prescribed medication in the past, and I thought it didn't help me as much. But yeah, I've been like in that path as well. back in the day. Yeah.
Can I ask Ola, how long have you been on this journey of anxiety?
Oh, great question. So I believe it started back in around 2011-ish, perhaps, when school became harder and I couldn't handle the pressure anymore, and it was all too much at once. So back in 2011, 12.
And because I was speaking to a friend and she was telling me about how she struggles to wake up in the morning because of everything that's going on. I guess what I'm asking is, how did you manage at that time to get on with your day or do things that still needed doing, or did you give yourself that space to just not do anything? Like when it gets really bad, how do you in that moment sort of even console yourself or just help yourself?
Yeah, it's interesting how it's actually coming back to me. Like yesterday, today, the other day, I woke up like anxious, slept anxious, cried anxiously, woke up crying anxiously. So it's definitely like a struggle is coming back within me. And so like the way I'm coping with it right now is kind of reminding myself like, nope, I'm here to serve Allah. Nope, I'm here to do good deed. Nope, I'm here to do good work. Nope, He's gonna take care of me. Like going back to that spiritual mind connection where like, no, I have a purpose in life. I can't give up. I cannot surrender to it. And then just today, actually, I reminded myself like out loud, I spoke out loud to myself of the video that I recorded with the workout. And I says, my anxieties don't rule me. My fears don't rule me. I rule my anxieties. I rule my fears. And I kept repeating that quote to myself. I'm like, I gotta practice what I preach. So I think that's a very big step for us to tell ourselves like, no, anxieties don't rule us anymore. We rule them. And like, sometimes, because I've, kind of like analyzed it and went through it, and sometimes anxieties can come to us when we don't want to do something. So like the perfect procrastinator can come in, where like we know we need to get this work done, but that work gets us anxious, so we kind of like leave it to the last minute. And because we leave it to the last minute, we get more anxious and more anxiety attack can come in. So that's something I'm working on. Like, no, I need to really dive in, fight through it, and get the work done.
So what I'm getting is then that affirmation is important to you, like you find it really is helpful, and then forming some sort of a schedule or a routine to make sure that the things you need to get done are done.
Yeah, and that can be very hard because I don't do good under pressure. I'm not sure about you guys, but myself, under pressure, I get like highly anxious. What about you guys? Like, do you do a good job under pressure, or you need your own little time space to get work done?
Oh man, I think I was really good at it in college, working under pressure. But I think since then, it's been a long time. But since then, I think I would prefer if I had time. Like then I can schedule things and be like, okay, if I do this today, then I can do that tomorrow. But sometimes I do succeed as on the last minute because I've done some work on Sunnah Living where I'm like, oh my God, I need to get this done. And I just get it done. So, but I don't prefer it, but it can happen. I think I like more spaced out for sure. What about you, Qudsiyah?
I've never been a fan of pressure and I don't like working in pressure. But like a year or two ago, I had a job that was so high pressure. I can't even believe that someone like me was in a job like that. I was working really long hours, so I guess that taught me how to work under pressure, but my preference is to have time. I don't like to be all over the place. Yeah, I think I can work under pressure, but it's not my preference at all. I will escape pressure as much as I can. Is there something, Samia, that you do? I wanted to ask you if there's something that you do to manage your anxiety or any of these thoughts that come up for you during this time.
For me, during this time, I don't have a lot of experience with anxiety as like a lot. I've had anxiety pop up with my thyroid disorder. So I've only had like 3 instances. And Ola, I don't know, man. I don't know how you do it, but those 3 instances have been really awful. It was not enjoyable experience, right? But I have a lot of history with depression. That's something I do have a history with. Right now, with something this coming up, I feel like I don't have like anxiety as a disorder or whatever, but I have worries. So I would say like obviously everything is a spectrum, and if anxiety was the word, then it would be like I'm a very low end spectrum of this, where it's like, okay, so anything can happen tomorrow, anything can happen today. I mean, literally, things are changing by the hour. So one of my friends lives in Rhode Island right now, and he shared like 3 hours ago there was no death, but as of now there is officially one death in that state as well. It was one of the
Same here. Like in the county I live, a teacher just passed away.
yes, subhanallah. So things are really changing by the hour, and I think this is actually one way I'm feeling strength in it. It's like anything can happen, good or bad. So either way it can happen. And inshallah, Allah is in control. I just have to remind myself of that. But sometimes I find myself really worried, and sometimes I'm super positive that I haven't. But I think the one thing to do, honestly, though, is to shut the media out completely. Yesterday, when we were talking, having a conversation about something like this, had no idea what was going on, and life was good. And then last night, I checked the news and I was like, wow, the US is doing horrible. And that kind of like, okay, you know what is good? The less I know, the better it is, because I'm not in the lab making all these treatments and working through anything. I'm just at home. So what's the point of me like checking every hour to see what's going on when I really can't benefit? I think that's my thought process right now. I don't know if it was helpful, but we're just going through this together. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about spirituality. How are we able to still work on it? Because I know that when I go through my mental health issues, it becomes really hard to focus on spirituality. That's the last thing sometimes that I want to refer to. And I feel there's a lot of, it's not very good, but that's just the reality that happens as far as my experience goes. So Ola, talk to us about how you're still working on sticking through spirituality, and what are your some tips about that?
Yeah, great question and great topic. So, it's actually interesting that we were talking about this today and yesterday, and how like we were saying that Shaitan is coming back into my head.
Shaitan is like, our worst enemy at all times.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, because it's actually coming back into me, and I was talking to my mom's friend like just today, interestingly enough. She was like, go back to memorize the Quran and take an ayah a day. And then I'm like, okay, yes. But I'm like, no, I really need to get on that. And then also Samia knows my story back in January, where like something I went through that kind of like spiritually kind of tested me out and kind of helped me understand like also how that is literally in control of my situation. And so I've been reminding myself, like, no, he is in control. But then, like, today, for example, it's kind of been shaky. So I'm not sure if my faith is being shaked up right now, or that, like, I'm allowing the shaitan was supposed to come back into me. But, like, today, for example, I've been going through the whole istighfar, like, astaghfirullah, la ilaha illallah, subhanallah, like, doing as many azkar as I can. And then journal writings, the dua journal is really helpful, like writing things down, kind of like talking to him. Or when it comes to salah prayers, like in the sujood moment, talk to him. Like, I'm not good when it comes to dua. I don't have the prophetic dua memorized in my head, so I just talk to him, and like I talk to a friend in the sujood moment, and I think that's the best way. But like we also have to remember that Prophet, I believe Musa alayhi salam, where like he talked to him, like he would talk like inside his heart, Allah knows everything. So just keep that consciousness in. And I believe like the more we get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more we're gonna get tested in that aspect. So having Quran being played around, and Ramadan is coming up. Yep, the perfect time to make a U-turn.
Yes. It is coming a lot faster than we thought, for sure. I can really relate to your Asghar though. Recently, I don't know, you guys probably know this, but I'm doing the Asghar journey on my Instagram. And it's like right now, alhamdulillah, like 200 of us, and then we're working together and doing Asghar together, right? And we're just trying to memorize them. And honestly, at this time, like this is like the only thing that has been keeping me sane. I forgot to mention that. Qudsiyah, I should have mentioned that when you asked me the question. Because it's like, you know what? Okay, whatever. Who cares what's happening today or tomorrow? Maghrib time is approaching. It's time for Azkar, the evening Azkar, you know? Or when I'm waking up, hey, okay, morning Azkar time. So it's like that little shift, mind shift again, possibly, that, you know, it's happening where you're just focusing on Allah. And all the Azkar is, there are du'as in it as well as acknowledgement of who Allah is. And so there's like a constant reminder of, oh yeah, look, Allah is the one who I'm turning to. He's the one who has it all under control. It's going to be just fine. So Azkar has been so powerful, and I wish I could tell everyone to be like, harness them because it's like a really, really useful.
Can I say something?
Sure.
It's just interesting. I'm smiling because you're like, oh, about 200 people sign up for your Esca, right? What you said? Mashallah. But I'm just like, why can't those same 200 sign up for like a fitness journey? So like, it's something that I'm struggling with in the Muslim communities. Like, we're so good, mashallah, with like Esca stuff. But when it comes to the workouts, it's like,
Ola,
why can't we connect the two dots together? So
let me just say it, and we can totally talk about this. Adhkar journey is free. There is no one is paying for
yes.
anything.
No, I know, but like, I'm laughing about this because I know
it's
you know
true.
my journey.
I know
but
that. Yeah.
Even if it was like a free journey for like a workout, I love the Muslim communities, but I'm just saying from a perspective because I also remember when I had the Instagram live with Umaida last year in 2019 for the Ramadan preparation. That was like the main topic, and that's why I'm thinking of doing my own show about it. But we're like fitness, exercise, walking, whatever, it's an act of ibadah. So if you can connect the two dots together, like, walking and like whatever you're doing, and then connect it back to the iskar. And that was the whole point of, also, if you go back to my interview with Imam Wissam, we talked about that too.
No, Ola, actually, that's one of the reasons why I do like your fitness approach is because it is connected to spirituality. And Alhamdulillah, Allah has put me in a position where spirituality is important to me. And that's probably one of the reasons why we have that friendship, because I do admire that. When you separate the two, then yeah, sure, it works. But it doesn't really work holistically, because I was into fitness before I was ill, and I was really loving it. It was awesome. It was my, part of my life. It was really amazing, but I felt that it was imbalanced because there was a lot of judgment on the self. It was like, how am I looking now, kind of a thing. And so I really appreciate that you connect those two. And I totally agree. If we can, and I'm not sure where I've seen this, but there was one person who was like doing push-ups and they were doing adhkar in the process. And I was like, this is so smart. Like, if you can do that, so your spirituality is flexing, but your muscles are also flexing. I don't know who it was, Ola. Maybe it was, I'm not sure. But I remember that stuck with me. And so if we can do that together, that would be really, really good.
Yeah. Thank you. No, I hope, but you get my point.
Yes. And maybe we can do a shout out to our Muslim community here and be like, hey, come on, guys.
Let's get
we have to value we have to value each other and really seek out the things which are honestly good for our heart and our bodies together. Because we cannot, I've been there to the fitness where the heart was not connected, and I felt it was not as useful as if it would be otherwise.
And sometimes I feel like, even I've been on this fitness journey and all of that without spirituality, without connecting it back to Allah and the why are you doing this in the first place. And it kind of takes you away, I feel. Like, it makes my heart less present. Whereas if I'm doing the workout because my body has a right and like I have to give it its right, for example, then like you said, it becomes a lot more wholesome and holistic. Yeah.
That reminds me, I listened to a while ago, it was like a lecture, and he was in a seminar or something, and he talked about, like, it was a marriage topic, right? And he was saying that it was during his wife or something, and he said that at one point they had a really rough time together, and he wasn't really having a good relationship with his wife at that point, but the washer dryer broke for the laundry, and he was like really angry, but he was like, I had to fix it because she has that right, that I need to make that available for her. And it's that maybe it will come into play that, wait, you know what? I don't want to work out. I want to have the entire cheesecake right now, but I'm not going to because my body has a right on me. So I think that shift in perspective would be very, very nice. And yeah, spirituality makes a huge difference.
Qudsiyah, what about you? How do you bring your spirituality back into, like, how do you stay grounded mentally, physically, and of course spiritually?
I'm not prepared to answer this. Let me think. No, wait. I want to answer it because it's a good question. It's a really good question. So for me personally, my morning pages have been helping a lot to just keep my thoughts in one place. So I fell out of the morning pages for a while back when I was in Tanzania 3 weeks ago, but that's when I realized how useful they are to me. And it's just a stream of consciousness that I write, And it's been a bit of a journey because I thought it was actually going to be a lot worse than it turned out to be. Because when you're writing, you don't know what you're going to come up with and what your subconscious is going to be like on paper. So I just found it really therapeutic, and that's one of the things that's grounding me at the moment. The other thing is, like you said, Ola, surrounding yourself with Quran and playing it out loud. And yeah, just constant reminders that Allah is in control and Allah is watching. He's not unaware of what's happening. And what's going to happen will happen because that is the nature of things. And I was never in control. So this is also not the time that I can be in control. So all these just little reminders, just talking to myself a lot about like calming the heart. And yeah, just little reminders really.
What are some of your, where are some of your worries coming from when it comes to this? Like, what are some of the things that are coming into your mind and that's really causing you to lie awake at night, basically?
So one is internal and the other one is like external. So the internal one is the fear of being stranded, because essentially the UK isn't my home. And although I have family here, I have this fear of either of us getting ill and just being alone in everything. Whether it's just like, I think because I don't feel like I belong here as much as back home, I think that's what is scaring me a little bit, because I don't know what to do, or I don't know how to manage things, because it's a whole new place and I don't really feel at home. So there's that. And I know that I'm not alone. And this is something I need to remind myself all the time, that, okay, it's okay. Like, you're not going to be alone, Nobody's ever alone. And the other one is fear for my family back home in Tanzania, because this is also the second time we're doing this, so I'm trying to think about what we said. But life in Tanzania revolves around one another, and there's no such thing as self-isolation. And the thing also is that money, like the value of wealth and money is quite low, so there's not that much you can get for money. So as much as we can stock up here, for example, in the Western world, that's not really possible for a lot of people back home. And the healthcare isn't as amazing or supportive. So I think that it's almost impossible for someone to self-isolate there. And that really worries me for my family, because they're older and their immunities are at risk. And if one person gets it, like, you can kind of be sure that everyone's going to get it, because everyone lives close together. Everyone's constantly meeting one another. Just going outside of your house, you already meet like 10 people. So like there's just a lot of human contact, and at this time where that is at a limit, you can't really limit that there. So yeah, those are my two worries.
How are you going through that though? Like, okay, these are your worries, but how are you like saying, okay, I can do this? Like, what are your things that you're holding on to get through this time?
The thing is, I don't ever feel like I can do this. I feel like I can just about not think about it. That's where it is. I think Quran helps a lot, because there's so much reassurance in every page that you read. And there's verses I've been coming across, such as, just paraphrasing, it's Surah Ankabut, verse number 69, if I'm not mistaken. And it says that if you work in our way, then we will surely, like, more certainly guide you, or something along those lines. And I just found that very reassuring. So just reminding myself that it's okay. As much as Allah loves me, He loves my parents, He loves my family. So like they're in His hands, basically. They're not alone. As much as they live alone, but they're not alone. So I think I'm just about not thinking about it, due to these reminders?
I had to check this out real quick because I just shared this video. I saw this video today or yesterday, whenever. She's a Sheikha, Maryam Amir is her name, and I'll definitely link that to you. And she's talking about angels coming to a person who is dying. And the way that she describes it, it's like we really shouldn't worry in this case. Like if that person is a believer, inshallah, and they're a good person, angels will come and it will be a source of comfort. It will be something there will be a good reunion, and it will be beautiful, and it will be worth everything that they're waiting for. So I find that as a comfort as well. It's like, you know what? Okay, if my family member, God forbid, is in this position, inshallah, Allah will take care of them. And we are going to be suffering more than they will be as people who are alive. So I find a lot of comfort. That video was beautiful. And I was like, oh my God, I really need that. Like, we just really need to know what our faith says about this. And we won't be that scared anymore.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And that's something that I believe either was yesterday when we were recording or today when I was talking to Samia. Or actually my friend, when I was like, oh my God, I'm so scared. Like the fear of the day of judgment is coming. And she's like, no, that should be, instead of a fear, it should be a comfort. And I'm like, for me, it's like not a sense of comfort sometimes. Like, oh my gosh, what if I'm actually from the people of the hell and stuff like that. So I don't know, like it just gets into my head a lot. But like you said, so I'm back to my whole istighfar and like askar. So I'm like, okay, calm down. If I die, like, you know, I'll be in a good place, inshallah. But yeah, like what you guys say, like it's important to, and like even Samia, we were talking about how like I was telling her today, like I'm like, what if I'm being punished? What if this is like a punishment I'm going through? And then I told her like, no, it's how I perceive Allah, how I will see my life to be. Same thing as my mom's friend reminded me. It's like she said, if you think that your future is going to be negative, then yeah, Allah will make it like look like negative to you or like make you kind of go through it. But if you see it as a positive, then, you know, He'll help you make it positive. So it all goes back to the mindset shift, you know, like the abundance mindset, the growth mindset, the same thing, but like put Allah back in the picture, not just like I got this, the ego part, but like the spiritual part as well.
What I love, one of the hadith I remember is that Allah does not punish a person who is asking for forgiveness. So as long as we are doing istighfar, Allah is not punishing us. Allah is not going to punish His believer and His slave. So we have to really remember that. As far as whether this is a punishment or not, I don't know. Allah is the only one who knows. I was listening to an imam yesterday, and I love, and just a little sidetrack, that the idea of massages closing is actually like really beneficial to me because they're like everybody's online now, and I'm loving it. So they were talking about it. It's like I don't know whether this is a punishment or not, but this is an opportunity for sure for us to grow in different ways. And like for example, he talked about Ramadan, how our culture is very much into partying and eating and not really that much about ibadah, what Ramadan should be. So he's like, maybe this is a wake-up call, a reminder for us to be like, hey, we probably won't be able to go to the massages during Ramadan, so now we can really get to know what Ramadan is really about. Allah has kind of giving us that space to be able to do that. But that was really beautiful.
And inshallah we get the opportunity to do that, inshallah, and we don't waste it, you know, because it's all about tawfiq. It's all about the opportunity that Allah gives us and that we take it. Inshallah.
That's the whole point of the Purposeful Ramadan program is like, subhanAllah, how like the whole social isolations, like now instead of being isolated, like the massages are being closing, and a lot of people who are used to the whole cultural iftar parties, like I was never part of that, to be honest, but I know that's how people perceive Ramadan to be. But now that's like taken away, it's like, hello, wake up. That's not the point of Ramadan. It's the point to like actually connect with Him.
We all have issues when it comes to that. I know there are times where, even though I've never really been an iftar party person as well, but I know there are times where I've totally wasted my days during Ramadan or nights that could have been beneficial. So I hope this is a wake-up call for all of us, really, that we can get better than we were last year. That would be really, really nice if we can do that.
Inshallah, yeah.
And Ola asked Qudsiyah about that, that what is her main fear stemming from? I want to ask you, what is your main fear and worry and anxiety in this stemming from, and how you're dealing with it?
For me, it's a lot of different things. Number one, financial situation. Number two, being an only child, and to older parents, like, you know, we never really talk about like the future when it comes to like, you know, who's gonna pay, but it's kind of coming back into me like, oh my gosh, I really need to take this seriously. The whole Sadaqah Jariyah, like I need to keep them in my head. And then like I'm also single, so there's that part. So I'm trying to like not let the whole like fairy tale dream get into my head as much. And like I don't need someone to make me feel, like good enough or what have you. And then my business, my work, all of it all at once.
So like
Coming in.
your
Yeah.
personal and professional life is greatly affected at this point.
Deeply.
I'm saying mortality can do crazy things. I like what you said. It's like, you know what? I'm thinking about Sadaqah Jariyah. I'm thinking about who's going to pay for things. That's just the fear of mortality. And it's like we're living every day thinking we're going to have the next 20 years and we don't do those things. And then suddenly something like this happens and like, oh, wait a minute. I was supposed to be doing this and I'm in the same position as you are. It's like, wait, all of these affairs are not set up. I don't have a will written down. I should have a will written down. I don't know if my parents have a will written down. So, yeah, mortality can be a huge reality check. And the Prophet ﷺ used to instruct his companions to remember death like at least 70 times a day. This idea of like remembering it often. And that's probably one of the reasons why, because you get this reality check and like, oh, wait a minute, I need to be doing something else right now rather than doing this. Crazy. That was my reflection after what you said. It just made me think about it.
Yeah, I know. I'm actually reflecting back from my last Ramadan and stuff. Like, subhanAllah, how I've been doing better from like a sin and stuff. But I'm like, alhamdulillah, I've come this far. So I hope I can go further. But yeah, like, I just, the reality, like what you said. What about you, Samia? Like, what are your current worries?
Yeah, actually, I had a really interesting experience. Yesterday was the first time I went out after this whole thing started, and I had to do grocery shopping. I went to the little farmhouse to pick it up, and I got there, and there was actually a line. Like, there were people waiting, and I had this like a little tinge of like, oh my God, like what? Because I have autoimmune disorder, and I'm prone to specifically upper respiratory infections. A little bit of stress happens and I get an infection and it's not fun. So for me, this has been kind of very, very personal from the health perspective. I'm like, I think if Allah chooses me to get this, then it's probably not going to be a very fun experience, even if it's not, inshallah, the worst experience. It won't be fun for sure. So yesterday I was there and I was like, oh my God, there's a lot of people there, all those warning signs everyone's talking about. So I had a mini freak out moment and it was really amazing because immediately I remembered the dua that Allah is no harm can come from Allah, like no harm can come except if Allah wills it kind of a thing. And I just remembered that immediately and it was like a mind shift. And I found myself making a dua also Prophet used to make about in this case of, about asking for protection from diseases like that. And so all of those things I really lent heavily on and I find myself like making this dua while I was in the line, while I was inside, while I was coming back home. And that was just the way that I'm dealing with that. But my fear is coming from that if I'm to be exposed to it, that is probably going to be really difficult. And also because my husband is not home right now, so he's not around me. But when he does get home, his work involves the public. He's in law enforcement, so he's always dealing with people. And sometimes with people who are not really following the law, right? So people who are not really caring about washing their hands, basically, in this case. So I am worried about that he's going to come home and he can be having all sorts of things. And so we're talking about protocols, like where to take your clothes off, take shower before you just like breathe in the house kind of a thing. So those, yeah, so that is coming up. But those kind of things I still feel we have some control over and up until a point where we no longer have control because in the end it is minuscule. It is a virus. We can't even see it to be like banish it out of our house, So that is where my fear is coming from. And honestly, I can only rely on Allah. There's nothing else that I can do. I can make the du'as, I can do the adhkar, and that is literally it. And I'm relying heavily on that to be effective.
Yeah, in all of our fears or just this conversation in general, there's a theme. And the theme is catching yourself and replacing the thought with Allah's reassurance. And at the end of the day, that is really all we have.
Yeah, thank you for the reminder. Yes.
All of us, you're right. All too. Allah is in control. Allah is in control. We've all said this.
Everyone, yeah, exactly. We're just reminding ourselves constantly. We catch ourselves thinking or doing something and we're like, no. Allah's in control. It's okay.
No, honestly, with all of this, as crazy and unexpected and awful as it is, if it can give us even that understanding that we can really take it in, it's a blessing.
Alhamdulillah, yeah.
So Ola, we're approaching towards the end of the episode, and I wanted to ask you for your little advice for someone who's in a similar position as you are. She might be dealing with a lot of anxiety and she might have a lot of worries going on. What are some tips that you can tell her starting now that she can do to go through this effectively?
Yes, thank you. So, number one, my friend, is to sit tall, take a deep breath in, inhale it, and exhale everything out. Let's do it one more time together, ladies. Follow me. Take a deep breath in and exhale it out. Now, remember that in your mind, in your body, in your head, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control. Remember the 99 names. Write your emotions down. Write your thoughts down. And tell us that, like, everything's going to be okay. And keep on living life normally, inshallah. And that, you know, by the end of the day, Surah Al-Baqarah, to Allah we belong and to Allah we return.
Jazakallah khair, Ola, for joining us. It was truly a pleasure and really enjoyed our conversations together.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
Same. Oh, thank you so much. If there's something that you've benefited from today, we'll be so grateful if you'd share it with someone you know. It would help us out a lot if you'd review it on your favorite app and also subscribe to the podcast. You can contact us at Soulful Latte Podcast on Instagram and write to us at soulfullattepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep growing.